Hello, this is Joe Reagan, and in this video I would like to cover creating simple protrusions, revolved cuts, thin walls, pattern features, and simple assemblies in SolidWorks. In order to cover these topics, I'll choose a simple item. I'm going to model a pencil. I'll model this pencil as three parts: a wooden part, the metal part, and the eraser. Some rough dimensions are given here. So in SolidWorks, I'll start a new file. It needs to be a part file. I'll set my dimensions, or my units rather, to inch, pounds, and seconds. I did this through the Options button and then Document Properties. My first feature will be a hexagonal protrusion. So in order to create that, I will first create a sketch. I'll create this sketch in the right plane. I'll choose the hexagon button, center it at the origin, drag out horizontal. Then I want to fully constrain this hexagon, so I'll force this line to be horizontal and add dimensions from corner to corner. I'll let that dimension be 0.3 inches, which is close to what an actual pencil will be. I'll tighten this dimension up a bit, escape out of the dimension properties, and fit, and notice that the sketch has turned black, indicating that it's fully defined or fully constrained. So I will return from sketch, middle click, move my mouse to rotate the model a bit, go to Features. Now I'm ready to extrude a base. That sketch is already selected. I want to extrude this base symmetrically. So I'll choose midplane, and I want the wood part to be about 7 inches long, so I'll enter 7 for the extrusion length. Check that, then fit. Inspect my model quickly. It looks as I expected it to. So now I'm ready to create a sketch that will help me sharpen the pencil. I'm going to create a sketch that defines the cut, the revolved cut that needs to be made in order to sharpen the pencil. So I'll go to Sketch, Create Sketch. This time I want to sketch in the front plane. And I'll hit the space bar, double click on Normal 2, and zoom in on the area that I'm interested in. I'll first create a construction line that will serve as the axis of rotation for my cut. Okay, I'll then create a closed profile using lines that represent the cut. Alright, I want to fully constrain this, so I'm going to convert this edge into a line in the sketch. So I'll check. And now that edge, I just need it for construction purposes. So I'm going to trim it. Well, first I'll convert it to a construction line, and then I want to trim it. And let's check and see if that connected. And it looks like it did. Okay, so now I can drive the dimension of my cut there with the length of that construction line. And I want that to be 1 inch. Okay. Zoom out a bit to check the effect. Now I want to make sure that this is long enough so that when this profile rotates, it will cut away all the material. So I'm going to set that to 2 inches. And need to make this one shorter. We'll just let this one be a 1/4 inch. That will be plenty long enough. And then just to fully constrain it, I'll go ahead and add another dimension here. Okay, now we have a closed profile and a center line to rotate this profile about, and so we're ready to leave the sketch. Now I'll go to Features, and I want to revolve a cut. And notice that that sketch was already selected, so I'm going to set the axis of revolution to be this guy, and check, and fit, and now our pencil is sharpened. Now I can easily add color to the pencil with the appearance. Geometry, there we go. I'm not sure what, there was some sort of bug there. I couldn't see the features that I was coloring, so the screen refreshed. So I'll delete that part off, and I want to select certain faces. So I clicked here on faces, and I want this face and this face, and I middle clicked and moved the mouse to rotate the part, working my way around, selecting all the faces that I want to be yellow. Okay, looks like I got all of those, so I'll check that. Now I'll go back into colors again and delete the part. I just want certain faces, and I want these faces to be a brown color, so I'll make those brown. Check. Alright, now once I'm happy with my pencil, the wood part of the pencil, I can save it. And I'm going to save this to my desktop in a folder I've called SolidWorks Pencil. And now I'm ready to create the other parts. So I'll go File, File, New, Part, check my units. They're set to inch, pounds, and seconds. That's what I want. And in this part, I'm going to create the metal band. So I'll start with a extruded boss or extruded base, and I'm going to extrude it in this plane. Notice I've not created the sketch yet. SolidWorks will allow you to create the sketch after choosing the solid feature you want to create. That's an optional way to do it. You can either create the sketch first, or you can create it as after you've selected the feature you're trying to create. So I want this dimension to be 0.3. Check. Return. And now I want to extrude it symmetrically, so I'll go to mid-plane. And that dimension is approximately 1/2 inch, so I'll make it 1/2 inch long and check. Alright, now I need this feature to have some ridges running around the perimeter of the surface, so I'll go and create those with a revolved solid. I'm going to create a sketch in order to do that. So I need to sketch in either in the top plane or the front plane. I'll choose the front plane, and I want to use the space bar, go normal to the front plane, and now I'm going to make a little arc to represent one of the ridges running around the middle part. So I'll do a 3-point arc here, here, and there's fine. Okay, check. Now I need to have a center line, and I want that line to be a construction line. It's going to be the axis of revolution, and I'm going to close my profile, and I'm going to add dimensions. And now that my profile is defined, I will return from sketch, and now I can create the revolved solid using this button. And that sketch was already selected, so SolidWorks went on and assumed that that hidden line, or that construction line rather, was the axis of revolution, and has brought these options up. So I'm happy with those, so I'll hit check, and now I'm ready to pattern this feature. So I'll go into linear pattern, and it's asking me for a pattern direction, and I want to pattern this along the axis of that cylinder. So I'm going to show this sketch, and I'm going to choose this axis of revolution as my direction. Okay. Now that shows the result of this pattern. We have 5 entities. They are spaced on a 0.1 spacing, and we could modify those to suit us. I'm just going to accept these. You can also, there are many options down here for skipping occurrences and that sort of thing, but I'm going to accept that as it is. And at this point, I want to hollow this out and make it thin like the actual metal part. So in order to do that, I will use a shell, and I want to shell outward. In this field, we need to put the faces that we would like to be open. So I want this face to be open, and I want this face to be open, and I'm going to shell it at, I don't know, let's say 30 thousandths, so 0.03, and check, and that's what it looks like. So looks like maybe that's too thick, so I'll go in and modify that. Edit feature. Let's let that be 10 thousandths. Check. And I'm a little bit happier with that. So now I can save this part. I'll save it as pencil, metal, and I will create the eraser part. For this part, it'll be a simple protrusion. I'll create it in the right plane. So I'll just sketch a circle and then dimension the circle. And this dimension should be 0.3. Return from sketch. I'm going to do it mid-plane, and I want this to be approximately 1/2 inch. So I'll enter 1/2 inch there. Now I could change the color of this part, and we'll let the entire part be a red color. That one looks pretty good. So check. And we'll save this as pencil_eraser. Okay, so at this point we can create the assembly. So I'll go File, New, and I want to create an assembly. And the first part that I'll bring into the assembly will be the wood part, and then the next part that I'll bring in will be the metal part. So I'll go Insert Components, and I want to insert the metal part. Now notice when you bring in your base feature, your very first feature in an assembly, you need to choose a part that most of your other parts will be related to. This first part that you bring in will automatically be anchored to the reference planes of the assembly. So if I come over here and I look at the reference planes of my part, you'll notice that they are coincident with the reference planes of the assembly. With subsequent parts that you bring in, you will have to assign relationships. Okay, so I'm going to go to this part that I just brought in, and I'm going to show this sketch. Whoops, it was already shown. I just hit it. So I'll show this. So there's that sketch. That gives me an axis to work with, and I'm going to go up to this part, go into the revolved cut, and I want to show that sketch. Okay, so now I'm going to select these two axes of revolution, and I'm going to mate them. And SolidWorks anticipates that you want those to be collinear, so that relationship is established. And I should not have hit escape, I should have hit accept. So I'll control select those two entities again and mate, and accept that mate. Now this part will still move up and down this axis, and it will of course spin. So we need to eliminate some degrees of freedom there. I could use this plane for a relationship, or I could use this plane. So let's try to use this face and this face, and let's put a mate relationship and see what kind of options we have here. So I have the correct two, and I don't want them to be coincident, I want them to be parallel, and I would like to set their distance at 1/4 inch. And that's exactly what I wanted, so I will check that. Now the only degree of freedom that is left is rotation, and we could lock that rotation by choosing reference planes of this part. For example, we could choose this front reference plane and the front reference plane of the assembly and coincident those. I'm just going to leave that degree of freedom there. Now for the next part, we'll bring in another component we want to bring in, and notice you can browse here to other folders. I'm going to add in the eraser, I'll select the outer surface of the eraser and one of these circular features of the metal part, and I'll mate that. That will perform an axial align, so the axis of the eraser and the axis of this cylindrical feature will be collinear. And again, I hit escape instead of accept, so I'll have to do that again. So I'll hit accept on that, and now notice it still has this degree of freedom. So this time I want to mate this surface to this surface, so I'll control select those, and I was already inside mate, so it moves it in there, and I'll accept and escape and fit. And we don't want to see these sketches, so I'll go into that and hide the sketch to make our model look nicer. And we also have a sketch that's shown here. Turn that off, and I'll collapse these items in the tree. And that concludes our video on creating simple protrusions, pattern features, thin walls, and assemblies.